Why are workers leaving their jobs in droves and not taking the millions of new ones available to them?
And you have to remember, this isn't just a labor shortage, it's a labor shift.
Everyone I know was changing jobs or stepping off the career ladder.
It was a lot of reflection time. I know what I want out of my career, might as well just make the move.
Nearly 3% of workers, or 4.3 million Americans, quit their jobs in December 2021, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Sectors like retail and leisure and hospitality have been hit hardest, but no industry has been immune from the mass exodus of workers, including fintech, healthcare, IT, manufacturing, and all types of businesses and professional services. With so many open positions and potential employees in flux, the talent industry is facing a critical inflection point. Many companies are navigating these challenges by applying the principles of resilience to hiring and retention efforts. Welcome back to Yo's podcast, Back to Work. I'm your host, Joe McIntyre, and on this podcast, we discuss the unprecedented mass exodus that companies have witnessed over the past several months, what factors are causing so many Americans to leave their places of employment, and what companies need to do moving forward to maintain employee performance. Today, I'm excited to welcome Matt Rivera, Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Yo. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Joe. Thanks. Great to be here.
So, on our first episode of our second season, Matt is here with us to discuss the topic of talent resilience. So, Matt, maybe let's start off with a general question. What exactly is talent resilience in hiring?
It's a great question. I think talent resilience simply is the ability to hire when you need to, right? So it's building the resources, partnerships, processes, all those things that are necessary to ensure you can get the talent you need into your organization and when you need it. I mean, that's kind of the key, right? So, and one of the keys that I'm sure we'll touch on later is to make sure you don't fall behind in your hiring and that you are spending some time planning for future hiring and it's not really just about all the numbers and just having a lot of and saying, oh, we've got a great pipeline, we've got a lot of people. It's having the right people and then having them when you need them. And that's a key. And that's really what we're seeing right now is, you might think you have enough people, you might think you have, or be able to find the right people. But are you going to have them when you need them and when, supplies are in or when demand is high? So there's all kinds of things around talent resilience, but it's simply, you have to have the people you need when you need them.
And as someone who's been in the HR field pretty much your entire career, and especially considering today's climate, how important is talent resilience for hiring managers looking for, stability in the workplace? We talk about this idea of stability in hiring all the time. Why is it so important in HR and in hiring specifically?
Yeah, wow. So you say a word like stability. Wouldn't we all like a little bit of stability right now, right? And especially if you're a hiring manager. And I think the pandemic has been a hard lesson for most hiring managers and just most companies, right? It's pulled back the covers on all the things I think I've seen the companies have been quietly struggling with for years, right? Questions like, what kind of talent do I need to keep my business running? And where will I find the talent? Do we have it? Are we building it? Are we developing it? And what happens if I can't find the talent I need? How do I, use the talent I have, for example? So it's not a new problem, but it's certainly been exacerbated by the pandemic and people leaving the workforce and what we're seeing with the current war for talent, right? There are fewer people and those people have more options. That's why, right now especially, but, again, this is nothing new. It's important to analyze and plan for how you get talent into your organization, when you're going to need talent, and what kind of talent. And, so I think today is a really good example of what's happening today of what, many companies didn't prepare for and haven't prepared for many years and have been struggling with. But now it's just hit, a tipping point. And I think we're really, in many industries, far past the tipping point.
So, Matt, I alluded to this in the introduction a bit, but why has there been a mass exodus in fintech, healthcare, IT, manufacturing, and across industries? Is it simply because people are being asked to come back into the office and they're unhappy with it? Are there other factors beyond just COVID-19 that are impacting this deficit that many are facing?
Yeah, I think that one of the things you can hear, they have no problem finding construction people here, so that's a good thing. They're in the office working. But I think there are a couple of things. One certainly is there's a conflict now between how we were working and how we're working today, or how people want to work, right? So there is some kind of conflict with, hey, I don't want to go back to the way it was, you know. But I will say, some people never left the office, and some people, have not been in an office in 2 years. So you got all kinds of different experiences. So I think that's one issue, right? Is how do we recreate and evolve the workplace so that we can help people, and this is something we can touch on later too, is how can we help people become resilient themselves? That's kind of a bigger issue. But I think the other thing is technology is so pervasive right now, right? Every industry, every place you can think uses technology. And so everybody is looking for technology people. Everybody is looking for, well, healthcare is obvious, right? There's just not enough people in healthcare right now. So, and they're tired and they're overworked and, all of those things. But I think that's happening in many industries. But I think that with and technology is only going to get more pervasive. Technology is in everything we use, and especially in industries like healthcare, where the technology taking a bigger portion of those jobs, right? They're doing analysis, they're creating better ways to help people with their health. And that's creating, a pull from other industries that never used to get their technology people, pulled away from them. And so I think that's kind of a two-pronged issue that we're having right now with talent, in especially in technology areas and certainly in healthcare.
Yeah, I know for a lot of hiring managers out there, it can seem overwhelming with the number of roles they need to fill and the challenges that they faced in filling those roles. Can you explain what exactly a talent deficit analysis is as it relates to filling those roles, and what its impact could be on a hiring team?
Yeah, I think, and I've been kind of thinking about this for years, about, how you look at, and kind of the analysis part is looking at how talent comes into and leaves your organization, right? So you have to ask yourself, ask your company, ask your, HR team, ask your hiring managers, are we catching up or are we falling behind? If your, talent deficit is just like it sounds, right? So if you had, 5 people you needed to hire in January, and you only hired 2 of those people, and then you got another 5 people you want to hire in February, you've got 3 more left over from January. So now you've got 8 people to hire. And that can continue. And I think many companies are struggling with that now. I think they were doing it before. But I think that's where you have to have some kind of analysis that says, are we ever going to catch up? Can we catch up? Where can we catch up, and how can we catch up? Or, are we always going to be in a deficit for certain skills, or always, going to have a struggle getting these skills in? And what does that mean to our business? What does that mean to our company? Right now, for many companies, that's it's stopping the presses. It's slowing things down. It's holding things up from all kinds of parts and pieces of the supply chain. I was listening to a really good conversation about the supply chain, and everybody thinks it's like, oh, you put it's a product that you put on the boat, it just shows up at your house, and that's the problem. It's not getting on the boat or whatever. There are like a myriad of issues around that actual product getting built in the first place, or getting put on that ship, or making it to the port, or getting it from the port to your house.
How can we develop resilience and stay motivated in the face of these chronic negative stresses or changes in the workforce to what people are being demanded of in their daily jobs? How do hiring managers build this kind of inclusive employee experience? It may seem like a pretty heavy and loaded question there, but it's important, I think, in this climate we're in.
Yeah, it's certainly the big challenge, right? Today, is it, when we're talking to people, is it money? Is it flexibility? It's, what you're doing, yeah, what's going to make you happy? And I think that like many things, it starts with communication, right? So having a conversation with employees about what they need and how they need to be supported. And, it used to be working from home or being flexible. All this idea of flexibility was only available to some types of workers and some industries. Like we heard about it, but, a lot of people were still going to an office and still doing all of that stuff. And we have the spectrum of people, right, some have never been working from home, and they've been hearing about this whole time and going, I can't work from home. That's just not something I can do. Or, the way things are produced or the way I work just doesn't lend itself to that. And then there's people who haven't been in an office in 2 years. And now you're asking both of those to just come back and kind of, get back into the mix. So I think that, their experiences are so much different that I think that the answer, or part of the answer to the question, is how do we help people be more resilient themselves, right? That's going to help us create a resilient talent supply chain for our company, right? To say, look, if I have resilient people that, can change with me when things happen. Nobody expected a pandemic, right? And, when that happened, some people just, great, I'm over here now, I'm doing this. And other people were like, wow, I can't do this, I'm out, I'm done. And maybe we could have kept some of those people if we would have helped them be resilient, or we had been more sensitive to, well, what do you need? How do you need to be supported? And why, okay, is it all or nothing? Is it that, you can't do the whole job now, or you can't do a part of the job? Or I don't, maybe I didn't look for another job for you to do that might have been, helpful to our company, but instead I lost you because you just said, look, I'm out, I can't work like I used to, or like you asking me, or you're forcing me to. And I think those are conversations that you have to have, and hiring managers have to have. And it can't be just like totally casual either, like free for all. Everybody just do what you want, because that's anarchy, and that's going to be, that's probably not going to be productive in the long run or sustainable. We heard about, companies that have, unlimited PTO, right? And you hear all different experiences with that. Some people are like, yeah, it's a myth, right? I can't take off when I really want to. Other people are like, yeah, I can mostly take off, but I still schedule it, and it was still like it was before. And if I can't be gone for 2 months because, my job, they need me there at some point. So it's, those types of things you have to navigate. But I think we're much more in tune, or we should be much more empathetic now with our employees to say, what do you need to be resilient? How can I help you be resilient? And we're going to be on this path for a while, right? So, going through 2 years of anything will change you, and it's changed all of us. So I think that it's a really important conversation right now, and it would help us and can help companies overall be more resilient if they can help their employees be more resilient.
It seems that, a key part in this is flexibility, not just in hiring managers being flexible in what they offer to their employees or folks they're looking to hire, but those hiring managers themselves being more flexible in the skills that they're demanding of candidates these days. Being more open to some soft skills, being more open to developing learning and training programs to get the right people in the door and then train them from there. Why is it so important that these hiring managers and people looking to fill roles be more flexible in the types of people they're looking for? Certainly the dearth of candidates is one aspect, but just in general, how can hiring managers be more open to these soft skills, and how do they develop programs to emphasize them without looking for only that perfect candidate?
I think it's important that people who have potential are really considered and looked at differently than maybe we looked at them before, right? So people with good soft skills, the ability to learn, the ability to move into different roles and be flexible and take on new challenges. I think we always thought, that idea of hiring for potential was good, and you wanted people with potential, but I think most hiring managers are like, look, I've got a job to do. I need them to be able to do A, B, C, D, E. That's, if they can't do all of those, I'm not going to teach them B, right? I don't have time, or I don't, whatever. And I've got to go on to the next hire. So I think that, people thought about it, and they did in some cases hire for potential, but totally different ballgame now, right? So if you have that, talent and resources that can identify potential, and that can help you be more resilient when things change. And I think we're finding that you can take an IT person and probably help them learn a fintech system, for example, or something that is specific to a specific industry, or someone in product engineering who worked on phones might be able to work on an infotainment system. What's the difference? Probably not a whole lot in how they function, those types of things. So I think the other aspect is the ability to bridge with those soft skills and some of those experiential skills, technology and the user experience, right? So a good communicator can help translate those from like an engineering standpoint, how it actually works, to a user experience. And that might be a different person than we've thought about before. And that might be a person you have who may have that experience. They just may be doing something else right now. So I think that's part of the issue, and part of that resilience, and part of building resilience into your talent acquisition, supply chain, and how you do things, is to say, where are the must-haves, where are the things we've got, critical core skills, and then where are the things where maybe we could pivot a little bit, or use somebody who might be in a different place, or a different industry, or a different specialty area, and bring them into this project to maybe provide a different perspective. And there's really going to be times when you're just going to have to make that decision. There's going to be, and I think a lot of hiring managers today are still set on that list of skills I've got to have. And some of those people just don't exist, and don't exist in the numbers that we see. So I think it's important to have that flexibility, but I think potential's become bigger than ever.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but that talent deficit analysis, or working with the talent expert to kind of see where those holes are, and not just where they are, but if you even have a hole here, can we move someone from another project, like you just said, that may have that skill? Is it difficult for hiring managers to sometimes do a let's say a fair analysis of their talent gaps, because they could be sometimes so blind to what they need that they don't see the talent sometimes right in front of them?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And so there's two sides to that. Is there's the hiring manager who has projects and things to get done. They don't have time, right. Number one. And then there's also the hiring manager who only hires occasionally. So if I only hire every couple of months, I'm not thinking about 6 months, a year from now. I'm thinking about I got to get this hire done. I've got to get them onboarded and on the project and going. So their head's in a different space. That's why you need other resources. You need other help to think about are we in a talent deficit? And do we have this, you need to listen to the hiring managers, you need to communicate with them. But I think it's really hard to expect that they're going to be thinking that way, on a daily basis. And certainly it's probably harder than ever to really get your head around the future and decide, okay, what am I going to do right now that's going to help me in the future, but while still getting my projects done, or still, doing everything I need to do with my current employees.
So from someone working on the inside for Yo, and has been for a while, what are some of those examples or best practices, I guess, of those clients of Yo, or Yo partnerships, where people have been filling their gaps pretty well? What are they doing right? What is kind of the key, if you will, to retaining and recruiting in this pretty tough environment we're in?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that are really important. I think the first thing, probably the most important, is using multiple resources, and just kind of looking across your organization, what, and it's different even within an organization, right? So the technology folks are going to have, different needs than somebody who's in, a corporate support role, or finance, or, other skills, and certainly in health, even across healthcare, right? So there's people that are delivering the healthcare, and there's people that are working behind the scenes and on the technology and the machines and medical devices and things that would go into a hospital. All of those things, there's a ton of things, and those are all different kinds of hiring. So you got to have multiple resources. You have to have, you can't rely on single things. And we've learned that with in hiring with job boards and all those other things. There's different ones that are hot for different reasons and at different times, but you can't rely on them because everybody's using them. Everybody's got them. So you gotta cultivate multiple resources. Try to stay ahead of your talent needs. That talent deficit analysis is good to just stop, and it may give everybody a minute to say, yeah, you're right. I can't catch up. How do we catch up, or how do we mitigate the risk of us not having the talent? We talked about it a little earlier, right? Talking to your hiring managers, right? So I don't think we can rely on them to solve things like this, but we can ask them, like, hey, what's really causing you the most pain? When are you going to need these people? Let's look 6 months, let's look a year ahead and think about how we get people in our pipeline. And then the last one, I think, to kind of keep it simple, is you have to hire and recognize potential, right? So you might have people in your organization that could help in different areas, or you might need to bring on somebody who has a different kind of experience and maybe teach them more about your specific area or industry, and that might actually yield different results. So that's, you might get the diversity of thought that takes you in a different direction or helps you innovate. So I think that's another key one that I don't think really companies or hiring managers really have a choice now, because I think if you wait for just the right person, or you wait until you can find enough of the people you want, I don't think that's ever going to come. I think it's getting harder and harder. And I'm hearing in many industries that they don't expect that, everybody's saying this is kind of the way it is right now. Many industries, I think they expect that it will never go back to the way it was, and we will never have enough people, and people will not come back to these jobs they've left. So you need to look at it, and then you need to plan accordingly.
Yeah, it can sound scary, but with the right strategies in place, people are being more creative than ever in their hiring, it seems. So while it can be overwhelming that these holes will never be filled, but it just requires a kind of a shift, right, in thinking about how we fill these gaps and who we work with to fill them.
Yeah, and I'll add the last thing I would add is we tend to think in calendar years, and there's fiscal years and all kinds of other things, right? There is none of that when it comes to talent, right? You should not be like, oh, we're going to do an analysis in January for the beginning of the year. We're going to do it at the end of the year for the next year. You got to do it all the time. You need to be looking at this on an ongoing basis, and there is no timeline that says one time a year is better than the other or whatever. If you're not doing it on a regular basis, then you're gonna fall behind, or you're gonna wake up one day and realize, wow, we're really in a bind, and nobody wants to be there.
Well, Matt, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights on talent resilience. It's been a great conversation, and I'm sure we'll have you back pretty soon.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Nice talking to you, Joe.
Great. And I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in to Yo's Back to Work podcast. To hear future episodes of the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen in. For Yo's Back to Work, I'm Joe McIntyre. Thanks for listening.